what the is this guy talking about? I've got to be honest with you, I haven't said that word in probably 15 years. And here it is.
Welcome to the comment section.
What is going on? Welcome to the comment section, episode number 2. My name is Tyler Sturbin, and I am a husband, father, pastor, sometimes a leader, sometimes rapper, but in the midst of all of those, I get a lot of hate comments, and so this is the place where we open up my comment section to my life and my ministry and my leadership and my parenting, and we open it up and we laugh at it, we learn from it, and we figure out how can we grow from not hiding the comment section. And I am with our producer. His name is Eric Phillips. He is and at this point, your podcast probably has had its first episode.
Yep, episode 1 is live.
Yep, the Broom Tree podcast. So thank you so much for being here and helping. He makes it all happen. But we also have somebody that we want to give a shout out to that was also helpful. He's not here right now. I think he's in Alabama. His name is Damon. He's kind of like quality control, okay? So we said, take thousands of comments and filter through them, and in like 1 second, he put them all in an Excel spreadsheet by curse words and da-da-da-da-da-da. What a beast. So Damon, if you're listening, he's not here. He will probably be around in the next couple episodes. Damon is the man, and we are so thankful for Damon and Eric for helping out and all of that. But we get to open up the comment section because I think a lot of us, we are so scared of pushback. We are so scared of negative feedback, and we think if people don't like it, God didn't call me to it, and that's not true at all. But it's easy to say that when you're on the one side of it, right?
Right.
So for me, it's easy to go, well, I'm not doing anything, and you can encourage somebody else, but it's very hard when you've got the mean comment or you have the text message that somebody doesn't believe in you or they're telling you not to do something or whatever. It's very easy to tell someone else, hey, don't believe those lies.
Right.
But then you believe the lies, and it's very easy. And I think that we have to go, just because I get negative feedback doesn't mean I'm not doing a positive thing. And just because I'm getting positive feedback doesn't mean I'm not doing a negative thing. Because I remember whenever I would go to a party whenever I was in high school, and I'd be doing like a keg stand or something.
Right.
And everyone would be like, Tyler.
Right.
Just because I got positive feedback doesn't mean I was doing
winning.
A positive thing.
No, for sure.
Or the moment I started preaching, I got, you shouldn't be preaching. Do you know what you've done? I saw that keg stand. You shouldn't be doing that keg stand. Just because I'm getting positive feedback doesn't mean I'm doing positive things. And just because I'm doing I'm getting negative feedback doesn't mean I'm not doing negative things. And I think that we have to be very careful that I don't allow what people think about what I'm doing to dictate what I'm doing, but the Spirit of God telling me what to do needs to dictate what I am doing. And yes, I've done a couple keg stands in my day, and God has forgiven me. But there's so much hope, and there's so much when you fight through the no, when you fight through the negative feedback, when you fight through the comment section, you keep doing it. I think it reveals to people like, dang, he's really doing it. She's going off even if nobody believed in her. But I also think on the other side of no could be a lot of yeses or a lot of opportunities. So before I was pastoring or anything like that, I made music, okay? And I remember this one time we were teasing like a music video we were going to release, all right? And I put it like in my Instagram story. I was like, should we release this song? And it was like yes or no. Thinking back, I shouldn't have given people the opportunity to say no. But I think like at the end of the day, it had like 300 or 400 yeses, right? But I'll never forget, it had 2 no's. And I just remember looking at it, and at the time, I'm not going to put them on blast because I know them, I could see who said no.
Right.
And I remember the 2 no's were louder than the hundreds of yeses.
Okay.
And I remember thinking, like, should we not release this song? Should we not put it out? Should we not, whatever. And we ended up going through, we released it or whatever, and now it has like 500,000 streams on Spotify. It's been streamed hundreds of thousands of times, all of this stuff, right? But 2 no's could have kept me from reaching hundreds of thousands of people
Right.
because I was more scared of 2 no's than I was the possibility of reaching hundreds of thousands of people. And I think that so many times we will know if I need to do something or God's calling me to do something if nobody says no. Versus even if somebody says no, if God told me yes, I've got to see it through. I've got to walk it through and watch God work, watch God cook. And so we are going to open up the comment section real quick. And this one is going to be crazy. Okay, if you're listening or watching. Let's see. Comment number 1. All right. Here's a comment, and I'm so uncomfortable
ready for
reading this. What the is this guy talking about? I've got to be honest with you. I haven't said that word in probably 15 years. Ooh. And here it is.
There it was.
What is this guy talking about? One, I have no idea. I have no idea what I was talking about, probably. We get a ton of people that cuss me out in the comment section or anything like that. But I think that this opens up a valid conversation. Not about, people are mad at me, but can I, as a Christian, say curse words, right?
Right.
Can I cuss as a Christian? And I think that that's the wrong question to be asking. I don't think you ask, can I cuss? Mm-hmm. I think the question you want to ask is, am I being like Jesus? Right. Is cursing, watching Netflix, playing video games, anything. I'm not looking at, can I do this? Can I not do this? My question to my life is, am I looking like Jesus? Do I look like Jesus right now in the moment? Because I think the moment you go, can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? You're going to find a way to do what you want to do.
For sure.
You're going to find a scripture that backs it or whatever. And I think anytime you're using the scriptures to co-sign your flesh rather than walking in his spirit, you get it gets very, very dicey. Yeah. It gets you can really use you can really use the scriptures God wrote to us that are holy, that are meant for my good, that are meant to grow me, that are meant to challenge me. Mm-hmm. I can really read this one passage and go, this is what it says. And I think that's it in general, right? Using the scriptures not to make me feel better about myself, but to make me more like Jesus. Right. And a lot of times whenever I walk in, am I like Jesus? Am I listening to things that Jesus would listen to? Those old WWJD bracelets, like whether right or wrong, it's kind of legit. Yeah. It's kind of a real thing that I've got to look at. But I think you do this with anything, right? Can I cuss? Can I vape? Can I? I see it more, and I think that oftentimes we look for liberties, like rather than anything else, right? Like where can I squeeze in a little bit of my flesh the walk with in the walk with Jesus? And I think that anytime you do that, anytime you're looking for liberties rather than looking for the Lord, you are in dangerous territory. Especially. What do people say? Can Christians drink alcohol? Can Christians drink alcohol? And I like to look at it. When I first had my daughter Salem, I remember we had a sticker on the back of our car that said "Baby on board." Okay. And so we would be driving down the road or whatever, and I would be so scared because I had a baby on board. I was so careful. I didn't drive super fast. Someone would zoom by me, and I was like, "Slow down! I have a baby on board." Right. And I would be so. And I remember whenever we got into the car after the hospital, I put her in and I turned the car on, and like Lil Wayne started playing out of my speakers in the car. Okay. And I remember thinking, well, I can't listen to this. Like I turned it off immediately. Right. I was like, I've got a baby on board. She can't be listening about lollipops and all this stuff. Like, right. I've got a baby on board. And I was so careful. When I had a child, it changed what I watched at the house, what I listened to, what I did, how I spoke to their mother. It changed everything. And I think that as Christians, you've really got to look at not, can I drink? Can I not drink? Can I cuss? Can I not cuss? Can I smoke? Can I not smoke? You've got to look at, are there babies on board? Are there younger Christians around you that you're going to put in a weird or uncomfortable environment that they're trying to get out of. And because you took the liberty to keep drinking or to keep cussing or to keep whatever, they're going to look at you and copy what you do. And just because you do it doesn't mean that they're mature enough to do it.
Yeah.
And for me, why don't my wife and I drink? Why don't my wife and I smoke? Why don't my wife and I like watch certain things or whatever? It's not because I don't want to have fun or I don't want to do things that it's not because I don't want to do things that like, oh man, I'm missing out on this. I'm missing out on this. I'm also setting myself apart to be a leader for somebody when there are enough people that are taking liberties.
Yeah.
I don't know that there are a lot of people that are holding themselves back so that they can be used by God. And so for my wife and I, like, we don't want to do it. We were just talking to a girl the other day, and we were talking about how everyone has convictions and why do we drink? Why do we not drink? Why do we cuss? Why do we not cuss? And we're just like, not something that I would necessarily preach from the stage because I understand that there are mature believers that can enjoy a glass of wine while they're watching TV with their wife. I totally get that. Yeah. We were telling her the reason why we don't drink is because say we are enjoying a night where we're having a glass of wine or two and you're feeling good or whatever, and then all of a sudden somebody calls that I've been praying for. Maybe they went to the hospital. Right. Maybe they need something, and I am not in a position to be the man of God I've wanted to be in their life. Mm-hmm. Seeing them come to Jesus is worth more to me than the glass of wine or the can of beer.
For sure.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime. And so I'm very careful to go, just because listen, if you're listening or watching, you're like, I don't like what this guy's saying. This is my conviction. Like, this is what my wife and I, and anytime you don't like something, whether you do it 100%, you don't do it, you agree with it 100%. I don't know that I agree with anybody 100%, but at least allow for it to sharpen and like kind of rub you and go, okay, I never really thought of it that way. And so whether it's cussing or drinking or whatever.
And the verse that always comes to my mind anytime this gets brought up, because anyone listening to this, if you know me or my wife on a personal level, we are a little different in this area. I know, and even we've talked about this several times over dinners and stuff. Like, and on the Broomtree podcast, you'll hear curse words from time to time. And that's not uncommon, especially even in Christian podcasts. Now, the verse that always comes to my mind when I think of this topic or drinking or vaping or whatever it is in James, and I wish I would have thought about this sooner to write down the exact, I think it's in chapter 4, but I could be making that up. But in the book of James, it says it's a sin to know what you ought to do
and not do it.
So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I didn't even know like it was an option. Peter, I think it's Peter says, or it might have been Paul, where he says, the grace isn't an excuse to just sin more. If you feel convicted about, and like we're on the same page with drinking. Me and my wife don't drink either. Yeah. And I don't think you're going to hell if you have a glass of wine. And kind of the same convictions to you, but at the end of the day, me and Amanda just said, yeah, I just feel like I'm not supposed to. And James says, if I know what to do and I don't do it, and like, so I know in my heart I can't drink. Like, God's laid that conviction on me. For me, that's the end of the conversation. And so for you, if you don't feel that conviction, there's more scripture you can dive into or whatever for cursing or whatever your topic is. But if you're just like a new Christian or you're not even a Christian, you're just listening to this and you're like, well, I don't really know. The Bible says it's a sin to know what you ought to do and then not do it. So just follow the conviction God's given you.
Well, just because, and remember, following the crowd get you into some ugly situations, really, and running to the scriptures and go, why do I or why don't I, right? So even if you drink or you smoke or you cuss or whatever, and that's a normal lifestyle, but you call yourself a Christian, or if you don't call yourself a Christian, that's a whole different conversation. But if you don't call yourself, or if you do call yourself a Christian, why do you do it? Not right. In a I'm pointing and going, what? No, but like, do you know why? Or is it just something that you've gotten comfortable with doing? Because the spirit will always challenge the flesh, and the flesh always challenges the spirit. And a lot of people go, I don't have a problem drinking, or I don't have a problem smoking, or I don't have a problem with porn. And I'll go, well, then stop. And then
Yeah.
they go, well, it's not even that big of a deal. And then I just say, well, then stop for a month and see if it was that big of a deal.
No, for sure.
A lot of
For
people,
sure.
they have more problems than they think they do as long as they can keep it in small doses. Oh, I only look at porn at once a week, or I only drink once a week. Every Friday night is my. Well, then stop for a month and see how hard it is for your flesh, for you to tie down your flesh, and go, we're gonna do. We're going to follow the Spirit today and watch how hard it is for you. And you'll realize I had a bigger problem than I thought I did.
For sure.
Because I only did it in small doses.
Yeah. Well, and also I would add on to that, when you talk about like just spending time in the Scripture, I think on the other side of that, you'll find more freedom than you realize you have.
Oh,
dude, I can't tell you how long when I first really gave my life to the Lord and was attending church faithfully, bro, everything I was doing was a sin. Like anything you could think of, oh, that's a sin. Can't do that. Can't do that. Can't do this. And then when I started reading the Bible for myself, I remember one, it's kind of a dumb example, but I remember one youth group kid, 16, 17 years old, and I felt convicted immediately. Like you said, get in the car one day, music's playing, and it was like, man, I can't listen to anything but worship music. Anything but worship music's a sin. I did that for probably like maybe a year, 2 years, and then I met my wife, and we went out on our first date, and I'm like trying to show her how spiritual I am and like low-key worship vibes in the background. But after like 3 or 4 hours of driving around, she's like, Do you listen to anything else? Yeah. And I'm like, no, how?
Unless you want
how
to.
could I? And then she's like, but why? And when she asked me why, I was like, yeah, I don't really know. I just felt, and so it's like study the Scriptures because Jesus brings freedom too. There are things that you might be holding yourself down for that God's like, bro, I don't care. Like, you're good. You're strong enough. And
I think that there are seasons, like, even if it's not quote unquote a sin, but like, okay, for this month, I do want to tap in more. So I'm only listening to worship for this month, and and following this, and that is being Spirit led. You are following the Spirit of God. So it's like, hey, right now when we're in the car or I'm with these people, I'm gonna do this not because it's my grand idea or my great idea, but like my daughters are in the car, so I'm gonna turn on worship or Kids Bop or something like that, whether I want to or not, because I feel like the Spirit's tugging me. But like when I'm working out and I have a workout playlist that's got Christian rap on it, that has some old like music that I like and all of that, I don't feel in my spirit, I don't feel convicted. And so that is, am I Spirit led? Am I following?
Yeah, and that's not fake, right? Like there's a difference between I'm Spirit
hiding
led.
it from everyone.
I'm not. Yeah, it's not a closet thing that like, oh man, if I get caught, it's just like, no, I don't want my daughter listening to this yet because she's not old enough yet or whatever. Like, it's not being fake to be like, oh, I listen to this when I'm in private. And I think that was the other thing too, is like, we're always taught you have to be the same person in every room, otherwise you're not being authentic. And it's like, well, that's not entirely true. You can relate to this even in your profession. You can't teach us adults and then go back in the kids ministry and do the exact same word for word message. Like you're changing your presentation all the time for your audience. And so it's like showing the gospel to my daughter looks different than showing the gospel to my friends. So
that's good. I think, hey, if you're listening or watching and that was kind of challenging, and we have and here's what we don't agree on certain things, but you can still have a rational conversation about like, I don't curse, or I don't like, that's not a part of my normal thing at all. Like, you heard me cuss for the first time in a very, very, very
it's the first time I think I've ever heard you say anything.
Not because like I'm better than anyone. That's just not in my vocabulary.
No, for sure.
Because I've wanted to, I really do. Like when somebody talks to me, when somebody hears me react or respond to something bad or whatever, like I want them to, for me, I'm not putting you on blast even though I'm better than you. I don't want to.
Well, you do challenge me with like, if it's not a big deal, then stop. And I'm like, okay, I will. Like, I will just do it. And then I'm sitting here thinking, could I make it to dinner tonight? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it really is challenging to be
put the gummy bears down. And you're like, well, I could. I just don't want to.
I just don't want to. Yeah.
Like,
I don't have to prove it to you. And it's like, but
I'm leaving. I'm not in your life. So it doesn't bother me whether somebody does or doesn't.
Yeah.
I would just say, then stop.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Someone cuts you off. Okay, don't want to take up a ton of your time. That is a very loaded conversation.
For sure.
And obviously put in the comments, what do you think? What do you think about it? Okay, comment number 2. And this also has a curse word. What are we doing right here? Okay, comment number 2. Don't take dating advice from a religious nut. In fact, don't date a religious nut either. They make and controlling husbands. Ugh, the cuss words. What am I doing, dude? This is rated R.
Dude, I can't
This
believe
is rated.
you.
I think we're bleeping this out.
Yeah,
but,
we're going to have to find a different church after
yep,
this, man.
do it.
I can't.
Don't take dating advice from a religious nut. In fact, don't date a religious nut either. You know what? I agree 100%. Do not take dating advice from anybody that's in their got tinfoil on their head going, you're going to do this, da, da, da. No, like don't do that. Okay. But I think that, and we say it at the church all the time, and maybe this will release you from something. I have no idea. Stop dating church people and start dating Christian people.
Yep.
You can date a person that goes to church, and when you need something, you know where they're going to take you? To church. They're not going to take you to the throne room of God. They're not going to know how to pray for you. They're not going to know how to read and study the word with you. They're not going to know how to worship with you. Anytime you struggle, they're going to go, let's go see the pastor and we'll go sit in his.
Yep.
Bro, that is as a helper, as a helpmate, as somebody that you're dating. And too many marriages, the spouse only hears somebody pray for them when they go to church. I know too many marriages where the wife has heard me pray for her more than her husband pray for her, or husband has heard another person pray for him more than the wife has ever prayed for them. And I know too many parents where their kids, the only time they ever have heard someone pray for them is when a stranger on Sunday morning prays for them. That is not okay.
Yeah.
But we go, oh, you're a church person, so you've got to be a Christian person. That is, I'm preaching it. I think this comes out after the message. So I'm preaching something this weekend. How do I know if I'm a better church member or Christian? And just going through a couple things, like, do I talk about my church more than I talk about my Christ, right? Do I, all this stuff. But I think one of the things, a church member has to take a class to become a church member. A Christian has to take up a cross to become a Christian. Okay. And I think that it's very easy. And a lot of times we'll see somebody going to church should not be the thing that attracts you to them. I think we'll go, they go to church. They've got to be the man of God, the woman of God that's doing it. Have you heard them pray? Have you heard them worship?
No, for sure.
How do they talk to people? Have they ever led somebody to Jesus? Do they know how to serve the community? Do they know how to take you to the throne room of God? Will they study the word with you on a Saturday morning whenever you don't want to hang out and watch Netflix all night and you want to go to a coffee shop and dive into the scriptures? Being a church person is literally the easy, that is like the easy mode of being a Christian, right? Like, I walk into church, that is the easiest. I walk into Walmart all the time. That doesn't mean I know about Walmart. That doesn't mean I know how to do things at Walmart. But we will go, oh, you're cute and you go to church. You've got to be from God.
Yep.
No.
Sealed. Yep.
Do they know how to pray? Do they know how to worship? Do they know how to read the word? Yep. Do they also grow not on Sunday mornings?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I would challenge to the, whoever wrote the comment, whoever if you're the person, are you doing those things? Right? Yep. Because I think so many times we can make that the standard because that's our standard. Yeah, you go to church.
I go to church.
We're on the same playing field here, and it's like, well, I want a man. Well, I want a woman that's going to pray for me, but am I the guy who's going to pray for her, right? And we see that a lot, especially if you have single people in your church or single Christian dating environments. They're always looking for the one. And I've always challenged the single people we've come into contact with, are you the one for him or for her? Because you might meet someone and they're 10 steps further down the road than you are, and that's fine. But yeah, I think so many of us, that's whatever our standard of I'm killing it right now. If someone matches that, then we just assume they're killing it. And it's well, that's not true. That's not accurate.
And you'll find out really fast. You'll find out really fast how mature somebody is when you tell them no. I think a lot of us, it's easy when you tell somebody yes, how much they like you. But the moment you tell them no, it will reveal to you how mature in their walk with Jesus they really are. They go, hey, do you want to stay the night tonight? And you go, no. And they go, what do you, da-da-da.
Hold up.
Or, hey, do you want to watch this movie? Hey, do you want to do this? Hey, and you go, no, 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 no. That goes against my convictions. That goes against who I feel like I'm called to be.
Yep.
You'll see how mature they are. Not when you tell them yes to going on a date. You'll know that they're mature when you tell them no and they respect your boundaries. They respect your convictions. Yeah. And that's the moment you'll go, okay, this person is, even if they're not as far they're not as far along as me. They are willing to watch growth, to be a part of growth conversations, to be a part of conversations where I'm trying to be the best that I can possibly be.
And if you want to get real practical, forgetting a lot of the spiritual piece of it for just a moment, if you're single and you're trying to meet a partner, you want to talk about something that's attractive, that's drawing in on either party, have convictions. Yeah. Have boundaries. Yeah. Although in the moment it's like, why are you telling me no to this thing? Later on when you do say, I'm not staying the night, I'm going home, that's an awkward moment. That's going to feel weird for whatever. But then on the tail end of that, you'll feel more proud of yourself. They'll be proud. Like, then they'll go, oh, this dude or this gal really, like, I can trust that they're really walking. Because there's nothing worse than we go to church together on Sunday morning, but I know we're having sex Sunday night. Yeah. It's hard for me week after week after week. Eventually, I'll start looking at you on Sunday mornings and going, we're both faking this right now. You know? And then when one of you finally does get the, like, it's better to just come in from day one and say, these are my boundaries, these are my convictions. Because if you bend and then you try and come back later, it's always harder. It's always more toxic. It's always very difficult to work through that, because then there's the whole, well, what are you doing now? Or like, who are you now kind of things. Just from day one, if you're single and you're listening to this, have your convictions, have your boundaries, don't bend, don't break, and they will, will respect it.
It'll attract the person, right?
Absolutely.
But when you're always bending and you're always changing it up, you become a little bit of every person you've always dated, right? Like, oh, well, I liked what they did. Well, who are you? Like, now whoever you were waiting for, like, now they're going to come to you and they're going to see some things in you, and they're going to be like, oh, I don't know if this is the person. You're like, well, the people that I was with before, I did whatever. And I think that in no other place does, like, how would you say it? Like, I'm safe everywhere else but in my Christian walk, right? Yeah. So there's just right now, outside right now, there's a ton of snow. And we were texting people like, hey, do you want to come do this? Or hey, do you want to come do this? And everyone takes it back. I don't know, man, the ice, or it could be potentially dangerous, or I don't want to get super close, or da-da-da. I don't want to mess with that. And I think that that's great. Like, stay safe. Take precautions. But when was the last time you took precautions in your spiritual life? Right? Like, you will date whoever, you'll talk however, you'll do whatever, you'll get as close to the line as possible. But the moment some ice hits the road, you're like, well, no, I could really get hurt. And it's like, but what about in your dating life? Yeah. How many times you've been hurt because you went home with the person? What about in your private life whenever you're watching something you know you shouldn't be watching it? You got as close to that ice as possible, and you've wrecked a bunch of times. Right. But now that there's ice on the real road, you're like, whoa, no. Take the same precautions that you do in your physical life, in your spiritual life. Yeah. But all of us, I can just go home, even though there's a little ice. I can go home.
It's worth it.
I can take this drink. I can go out. Okay, we don't want to take up a ton of your time. Let's go to the third one, a little bit more spiritual, right? So we've had some relationships, some can I cuss, can I drink, can I turn up? Comment number 3. For all the prayers that go unanswered, why do you think this is? So I'm guessing I'm preaching on prayer or something like that. Like, why does God not answer prayers? And I think that's why pray if he's not going to answer them. When I was little, I had never been to church before, and I remember I asked my grandma, she said, we're going to say grace during food or whenever we're about to eat, and I had never prayed before. And so after my grandpa had prayed, and so I went to my grandma, I said, Grandma, why are, like, what does prayer do? Like, why do you pray? And she says, when you pray, things happen. And it was the most simple yet profound thing I've ever heard. And so I went to my room that night. I was like 11 years old, and Pokemon was really popular. And I remember laying on my bed, and I had heard my grandpa say, like, Dear God, thank you for this food, amen, or whatever. Okay. And so I said, Dear God, will you let Pokemon be real? And literally, childlike faith. I went to bed expecting a Growlithe to be, because Growlithe is my favorite Pokemon at the time. I was expecting a Growlithe to be in my room when I woke up, and I remember waking up and I was like, where's the Pokemon? Grandma, you said said that when you pray, things happen. And ever since then, whenever I got into church and people were saying, "Oh, you pray," I was always so bummed that things when I would pray not necessarily would happen in the timeline I wanted them to happen. Just because I prayed for it and I got a no today doesn't mean it's not a yes tomorrow. Because in 2016, Pokemon Go came out, and my prayer was answered.
It's real now. Yeah.
It's real. But I think a lot of us, and I just kind of wrote down because I was thinking about this comment. No is an answer. We think yes is the only answer that can happen. When God tells you no, you're not going, okay, well, I'll wait for the answer. No was the answer.
Yeah.
Could you imagine being a friend with somebody that wouldn't take no for an answer? They would be the most toxic person in the world. You said, hey, or they texted you, hey, let's go out to dinner. And you're like, hey, no, man, like mentally I'm not in that space. And they went, no, like, let's go to dinner. And you're like, hey, like this, it's just not right. You've got to tell me yes. You've got to, and they kept going and they kept going and they kept going. That would be a toxic person. And for some reason in our prayer life, we go, God, I need this. And he'll say no. And we're like, well, I didn't like that. God, I need this. Well, no, I don't need it. Well, God, I need this. I need this. I need this. And he's telling you no this whole time. The whole time you're praying, he's telling you no. And you refuse to take no as an answer when a lot of times that can be the most freeing answer.
For sure.
You're wanting him to say yes to a relationship. He's saying no because your mental health is about to be destroyed. Your identity is about to be destroyed.
Yeah.
They're about to take advantage of you. You want this promotion. And God's like, you don't need that raise right now because if you did, you would buy the stupidest stuff in the world. Let me protect you from getting into debt in this season. Whatever it is. No is an answer, just like yes is an answer. And I think that a lot of times we get really hurt or we get butthurt when God tells us no. And it's like, bro, I am so glad God told me no. Yeah. I am so glad God told me no.
Yeah, and I know it's a heavy topic. It's a thicker one, so we won't get into the whole of it. But I know a big one that me and Amanda get a lot. For those of you who don't know, long story short, my wife lost both of her parents 10 weeks apart now 4 years ago, just about 4 years ago. And I remember going through that season and praying for years for healing for cancer and all this stuff. And for the longest time, we sat back and we were like, man, God said, I don't know if I say God said no, but God, like, he's not here with us anymore. They both passed away. And for the longest time, we were so upset and so bitter. And scrolling through the comments and through the great work that Damon did for us, I saw a lot of that same question. Well, what about this horrible thing, this horrible thing, this horrible thing? And I think it's okay to say, not really sure. Like, I can't sit here and be like, I know exactly why God did everything that he did. What I do know is I asked God and my wife asked God and all of our family asked God to make Mark whole and healthy. And if you really believe that heaven is real, he said, like, I wasn't just saying, like, and so if the prayer is, God, heal them so they can stay with me, a no sounds harsh. But if you believe what the entirety of the scripture says, it's no, he's not staying with you anymore. And that can go for loved ones. That can go, I saw a lot of them asking about kids or like whatever. And again, that's a whole nother, like, we're not going to dive into all that. But I think sometimes what's a no on one side is there's more than just no. We just don't always hear that. We stop. You told me no. I'm done. I don't want to deal with you anymore. And God's like, no, I'm not going to leave him with you because I actually want him up here with me now. And I think in bringing him up here with me, I'll give you a story to go encourage others that are going to go through the same thing. We weren't the first people to bury their parents in their 20s, and we're not going to be the last. You know, I think sometimes a no is more beautiful than we realize. But in the moment, I'm like, okay, well, screw you then. You know.
Hurts. No, C.S. Lewis in Chronicles of Narnia, talking about Aslan, or the lion, which depicts Jesus, it said, Aslan is not safe, but he is good. And I think a lot of times we think safety is good.
Yeah.
No, God, when the Spirit moves, when something happens, when God allows something, it may not be the safe option. You lost a job, you lost a loved one, it didn't take you down a path that you thought you would go down.
Yeah.
Just because it's an unsafe path doesn't mean it's not taking you somewhere good.
Right.
And I think a lot of times I equate God's goodness with my safety.
Ooh.
Very few times when I've sought my comfort or I've sought my safety have I actually done things that have built the kingdom. But usually whenever things have happened to me in my life, my struggle, and I've been strong through it, and I've shared this story, I've shared my faith, I've shared my testimony, I've done that. I've seen in a unsafe, uncomfortable situation, I have seen God's goodness more than anything else.
Yeah.
But just because something's not safe or something's uncomfortable doesn't mean it's not good.
Yeah.
And I think that I love the Chronicles of Narnia. I love it's a lion. Like it's this creature you go, I want nothing to do with it, but it's also powerful. It's all powerful. Yeah. He's in control. You know he's not stopping you. Like you know he's got your back, though it's sometimes unsafe, it's sometimes uncomfortable. And I think that when you can embrace no's from God, you know, and you know, there are people that say no means not yet. No, sometimes no is no.
It just means no.
Sometimes God doesn't want you to be with that person, and you've got to be okay with that.
Yep.
We just want to kind of sugarcoat God and go, oh well, every no has a comma, but no, sometimes there is a period after no. He says, I don't want you to have that because it would kill you if you got it. They would destroy you if you got them. You don't need that. And we have to be okay that there is freedom and that there is peace and that there is something better. Yeah. There's something that God has ordained for me that is so much greater that if he said yes to this, I couldn't get that. And I always want God more than I want anything that this earth has for me.
And it's such a test, I think, to like truly where your faith lies. And like, I believe that God is real. I've never not believed that God is real, even after going through all that. But I believed there was a time where I questioned God's goodness. And I just am so grateful, one, that my ticket into heaven isn't based off my perspective of him, but more so just my submission to him, if that makes sense. But other than that, I'm just glad that his goodness to me isn't based upon my perception of his goodness, if that makes sense. Like I didn't believe that God was good to me. And in that season where I wanted nothing to do with him, he gave me a daughter.
Yep.
Me and my wife grew closer through that trial. And so I'm over here cursing him, and I don't want to say he's blessing me. I mean, I do think he was blessing me, but you know what? Like his goodness isn't swayed. If his no is a no, it is what it is. But even when he tells you no and he knows you're going to throw a fit about it, he's still good.
Bro. And
I can't change that. And looking back now, I'm like, God, you are like, you knew I was going to act that way. Yeah. You still called me. You still loved me. You still blessed me. And I remember holding Joe and thinking like, dude, I don't deserve this. Like, this is the goodness of God, even in the middle of my season of no and anger and frustration. And so I'll be quiet after that. But
so
that's
good. No, man, so good. So many good comments, so many good questions. And it's so funny. We got mean comments on the comment section podcast.
Yep.
Which is so fun. But man, hey, thank you guys so much. 3 comments. That's it.
Done.
I hope you're encouraged. I hope you're blessed. I hope you're challenged maybe a little bit as we open up the comments. And I get cussed out all day. But we love you, and we will see y'all. I think we have a special guest next episode. We will see y'all next episode.
Peace.
Welcome to the comment section.